Ever since LeBron James left in 2018, the Cleveland Cavaliers have been abysmal, constantly finishing in the bottom 2 or 3 seeds in the standings. Though things don't seem to be on the change in 2021, I quietly have some faith in the Cavaliers and their rebuild, and with the current roster they have, I believe they could surprise some people this upcoming season. So, in today's video, I'm going to be looking at the Cleveland Cavaliers roster and the key players that make up it, and saying why I believe with this group, they could be at least an exciting team to watch play this year. Before we start, if you're new here and enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe for more NBA content like this. I'm trying to hit 16,000 subscribers, so all support would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, with that being said, let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. The first player I want to talk about on Cleveland today is their most valuable asset in Kevin Love. Kevin Love has easily been Cleveland's best player ever since LeBron left, but it sucks to see that his all-star caliber talent is being wasted on a losing team. With that said though, he's obviously going to make the most impact on Cleveland and will be the driving force on them potentially having a decent season, or one that's at least better than expected. A lot of Love's impact will also be made off of the court, as he's a big idol and mentor for the younger players on the squad. I feel like there's an underlying reason why he hasn't requested a trade from the Cavs after these last few seasons of misery, and that's because I think he has a great connection with the younger guys on the team. He's a leader and he's embraced that role thoroughly, which makes a major positive impact on this team. If Love can continue to perform at his current display, which is around 18 points a night on decent to great efficiency, his influence on this team should be big enough to create a gap between the Cavs and the bottom tier teams, which is something that they've failed to do particularly these past couple seasons. The next player I want to look at is Andre Drummond, because with Tristan Thompson out of the picture now, the Cavaliers front court is a very exciting prospect. It's no longer clogged like it was last season, so the decision to re-sign and extend Drummond's tenure with the team is no longer as questionable. Though many people clown Drummond's basketball abilities quite often now, he's still one of the best rebounders in the league today, and with his improving shot, he's no longer an offensive liability late in games. Considering where Cleveland are going, having guys like Love and Drummond on the team doesn't really make a lot of sense, but since they are, we'll look at the positives of having them instead today. Both players can and have played at an all-star caliber level before, so this makes Cleveland at least a decent team when they're on the court. I'm not saying they will be all-stars in 2021 by any stretch, but they can play at that level, which can make the Cavs a competitive side. Without them, it'd be hard to place Cleveland outside the 15th seed in the East really. They just have that inexperienced of a roster. But with them, they can play some good quality basketball and take it up to playoff sides. They won't be a breeze to get past, and seeing how committed both Love and Drummond are to the franchise, it's not hard to imagine them having great seasons individually in 2021 as the group's best players, which in turn can lead to some solid success for Cleveland. Let's take a look at the Cavs' great young core now, because in my view, it's one of the more underrated ones in the league. Darius Garland is a member of that core and just came off a nice rookie year. Nothing special, but nothing horrible either. He averaged 12.3 points per game on very mediocre shooting, and he also dished out 4 assists per game. Coming into his rookie season, many put into question his playmaking ability, but that turned out to be his best attribute throughout 2020. I didn't watch a lot of Cavaliers games last season, probably 5 at max, but in each of those games, the most exciting thing I noticed was Darius Garland's passing and the potential that had. A lot of people questioned the selection of Garland on draft night because it seemed like he'd play a very similar role and style to Collin Sexton, who was drafted the year before. It seems though that Garland was able to become more of a passer and playmaker, and that's why I'm looking forward a lot to his sophomore season. If he can knock off the rust and hit his shots more consistently, as well as continuing to develop his passing game, he may be a guy the Cavs could look to lock in for the future. If Garland can get to the line more often as well, he'll be a very valuable piece of this Cavaliers rebuild that right now seems to be going quite well. Again, Garland has a fair bit more to prove in his second season in the association, but I'm a big fan of where he is headed, so be sure to keep an eye on him this upcoming season. The next young gun in this Cavaliers locker room is Collin Sexton. Sexton does have some weaknesses in his game, particularly defense and turnovers, and at times he can become a bit of a ball hog and over dribble, but he does have a lot of upside. Sexton took a step forward offensively last season, upping his averages of 17 points per game in his rookie year to almost 21 in 2020. With a couple extra minutes per game, Sexton averaged an extra shot or two, but managed to improve his efficiency, even with a higher volume of shots being taken, shooting 47% from the field, which is 4% better than his rookie year, as well as maintaining an efficient three-point shot. If Collin can maintain or improve on this level of play, as well as fixing up some of the big issues he has with his game, he could also be viewed as a major asset for Cleveland's future. I unfortunately doubt he'll ever reach all-star status, but he could perhaps be seen as a good to great level scorer who is a solid starter when his career is all said and done. I won't overhype him, but as I said, Sexton has a bunch of upside, so hopefully he and the Cavaliers can make the most out of that. The next player I want to look at, who kind of inspired this video as well, is Dante Exum, and I am very intrigued about how he will go in the 2021 season. Dante Exum was drafted by the Utah Jazz a fair few years ago and was meant to break out into an all-star caliber player, but has continuously failed to do so due to many injuries. Thankfully though, he was traded by Utah last season as time was running out there for him to succeed, and now with a fresh start in Cleveland, he looks more ready than ever to finally break out. He already had a big outing in the preseason, dropping 23 points, 5 assists and 4 rebounds off the bench in an elite game against Indiana. And earlier this year in January, after only a couple games in Cleveland, he had a big outburst for 28 points. Now I'm not saying here he will consistently bring these games to the table, but it does show the potential he has to be something solid. If the Cavaliers can trust him enough in the offense, and if Exum can stay healthy enough as well, I can see him breaking out next season, potentially in a 6-man role. He could average 10 to 15 points off the bench, and though it's a bit bold to predict a breakout year from a guy who was meant to be something special so many years ago, I still have trust in my fellow Australian. I really just think he needs the opportunity to prove himself consistently. In Utah, he didn't get much, and so far in Cleveland, he's been in and out of the rotation. Looking at the Cavs' current roster though, I think this is the perfect time and place for him to do so. This will be his biggest chance yet. And as we saw in the preseason, Dante Exum doesn't fail to make the most of these given opportunities. So I really hope the Cavs give him plenty of chances this upcoming season. He can be such a useful addition to the roster and a guy that will contribute a lot to the wins they may rack up. Exum is 25 now. He's about to enter his prime, so this may be one of the last chances he gets, but I really can't imagine a better place for him to be in. So again, I really hope Cleveland give him the opportunity he needs to flourish. The second to last player I'd like to look at today is Kevin Porter Jr., and out of anyone on the Cavs roster, he has by far the most upside. With his elite athleticism and ability to finish inside, he could be an essential part of the Cavaliers core down the track. Over his rookie season, he was constantly improving, peaking just before the suspension in a game in February against Miami, as he dropped 30 points in a 6-point Cavaliers win. For the year, he averaged 10 points per game, but with more opportunities likely to come his way with his fantastic finish to the season, I can see him averaging as much as 17 next year. KPJ's biggest issue is his off-court antics. He's been involved with the police, but thankfully, news broke today that the charges are going to be dropped. But these problems outside of basketball could hold him back. We've seen that so often in the NBA, with the most notable recent example being Josh Jackson. In the end though, Porter Jr. is one of the most talented and electrifying players on this Cavaliers team, and I think we could see a big second season out of him. He is one player to keep an eye on, for sure. Finally, let's talk about Isaac Okoro, the Cavaliers' most recent draft selection, who showed his fantastic play already in the preseason, making a clutch defensive stop and hitting a game winner in his first ever game. From what I've seen, he's got a great basketball IQ and can finish well around the rim and inside. His shooting isn't the best, but obviously that can be developed. He'll slide in really well onto Cleveland and can learn a lot off of guys like Kevin Love. I'd imagine he'd come off the bench to start the season. We'll have to wait and see, but I am satisfied with this draft selection by the Cavs, and he adds to the fantastic young core of this team. So those are all the players that I want to talk about today. Obviously, there's other players who can contribute decently to the potential success of this team, like Cedi Osman and JaVale McGee, but the guys I talked about are the ones I feel like will make the most impact, whether positive or negative. But how good do I think the Cavaliers will be next season? Well, let me clarify something first. I'm not making this video to say that Cleveland are a playoff side, because they're clearly not, but in my eyes, they do have an underrated roster and one that can genuinely make games competitive with the best of the best. In my standings prediction video, I put them 13th, which I still stand by, but if things go well, I could see them push for 11th. I know that doesn't mean much, but essentially, I don't think they'll be a 14 or 15 seed yet again. I think they have taken a leap with their roster this offseason and should be considered in a tier above teams like New York and Detroit. I'm betting a lot of their success on the development of their young core, but the roster is shaped a lot more nicely now than it was in the prior season. So I do genuinely believe we'll see some improvement out of the Cavs in 2021. Overall, these are my thoughts on the Cleveland Cavaliers. With two great veteran leaders in Andre Drummond and Kevin Love, and with the positive development of their young core, Cleveland's rebuild seems well on track. They're still a fair way out of the playoff picture, but I can't see this team falling to the 14th and 15th seed yet again this season. They have a really solid roster, they can be competitive, and there is potential for many breakout seasons by the young players on this team. Again, I don't think the Cavs are anywhere near a playoff side, nor a 9 or 10 seed, but I think they'll take a sizable step forward in 2021, and that has potential to surprise a lot of people. Not many will expect a decent year from this team, so if they could at least push for 25 to 30 wins in the shortened season, their 2021 season would have been a major success. No one really cares for the Cavaliers that much. They are a pretty uninteresting franchise to many casual fans, but I advise you keep check with them throughout this upcoming season. If you don't, you may not realize the fantastic culture this team is building, and you might miss out on all of the fun. And that will conclude the video. What do you guys think of this? How good are the Cleveland Cavaliers to you? Will they take a step forward in the 2021 season? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop it a like and subscribe. But with that being said, I am out. Peace.